You're listening to The Main Loop, a bi-monthly podcast all about what makes games interesting, engaging, and most importantly, fun to play. Hey everybody, it is The Main Loop, episode 21. We're no promo codes this time. It's just TML21. Yeah, hashtag TML21 gets you nothing. Just like in real life.
TML20.
Actually, yes. Now Stu has promised that he's not going to play Mario Rabbids Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Rush.
Kingdom Battle.
Kingdom Rush is a different
My
game.
Kingdom for a Rabbid. He's not going to play that during the show, which I appreciate, and I'm sure the listeners at home do as well. So let's talk about stuff in games.
I'm totally not thinking about Mario Rabbids right now. I'm not.
I don't just wish I was doing that instead of literally anything else.
It's good. Yep. Let's talk about the video games that we're playing that aren't Mario or Rabbids.
I feel like there's only one game we need to talk about, and that is the untitled Goose Game.
It has a title, doesn't it? Does it have a title?
Is it just called Goose?
Just Goose.
This I'm going to put a link to this in the show notes because it's time that we had those. Untitled Goose Game by House. There's a YouTube of some pre-alpha gameplay. This is a game where you control a goose. I almost said a moose, which would be a very strange. You're a moose undercover
I think
as
it's
a
DLC.
goose. Yeah, moose. Stu's comment was pretty. Actually, your comment was pretty accurate. This asshole goose game. You're a goose, and you are basically just a jerk, and you go around doing tasks, little mini game challenges, basically accosting this poor farmer, like steal his sandwich or steal all his food and have a picnic by the lake, or get him to wear his other hat. So you like knock his hat off and then steal it and hide it in a bush. It looks like everything that Goat Simulator should be, but instead was just a dumb, like...
Yeah, it looks like someone decided to make a game instead of a Goat Simulator.
This video is just hilarious. You can sort of be aggressive towards the farmer as a goose. You can sort of honk and flap your wings and get him to back off if he's chasing you too much. You steal his food, like I said. I mean, there's a lot going on. You can throw his keys in the pond. I don't know what this farmer did to this goose, but it's in game form now.
It's really like the opposite of everything Genova Chen has ever tried to create in a video game.
Trying to bring people together and promote peace and harmony. And this is like, what if you were a goose that hated this farmer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here like two titles of articles describing this game. The forthcoming stealth game where you play an obnoxious goose.
Yes.
Here's a video game about a goose who's also a dick.
That is...
But
yeah.
like actually...
Yeah. I've never wanted something as bad as I want this Goose Game right now.
What's the meme, like, find someone who loves you as much as this goose hates this farmer.
Right. Yeah, I want someone who looks at me like this goose looks at this farmer with seething hatred. So watch this video in the show notes. And of course, because this is the age we live in, my first thought is, yeah, but will it come out on Switch?
Yeah.
Will it be on the Nintendo Switch?
Can you just put it on the Switch?
Goose Switch. Switch Goose. You also sent me a game trailer for Chuchel.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce it.
This is from the studio that made Machinarium and a bunch of other games. But this trailer made me so uncomfortable. Like, it's Amanita design.
Which they're like, now has spawned a pretty wide, like there are a few different game companies doing pretty similar designs to them.
Yeah.
There's another one about a robot that I saw recently that I assumed was theirs, and it was not. It was some other company. Yeah, I'm happy the game exists. I think.
It's weird.
I'm not gonna play it.
It makes me very uncomfortable. That trailer just weirded me out so much. There's like a big yellow plant guy who gets cut in half, and then he's like a swimming pool inside. I mean, this game is tripping balls.
Yeah. It's like those episodes where the writers just like let loose and like someone's sick and they're like going crazy, and it's like that, except in game form, kind of maybe. It's
kind of like a game. So I don't know. There's so many. I feel like there's this like whole subset of games just like there's this subset of like hard for the sake of hard. I feel like there's also weird for the sake of weird games, and I don't like. I've never been a fan of that in music or in movies, and I definitely don't like it in video games necessarily. Of just like, this is just like, it's a 4-year-old's like drawings that we animated and brought to life and made even weirder.
Yeah, what's interesting is that they're like, well, it's supposed to be like the combination of a short and a game, like a video short.
Like an animated short.
Yeah, an animated short. And I was like, oh, that's cool. When I was just like, hadn't clicked the play button yet.
Then you watched it.
Then I clicked the play button and I was like, so it's like someone watched Pixar, like a Pixar short. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then went back to their dungeon.
Yes.
And made what they thought was a Pixar short. And it scares me. Like, I'm sure there's an audience for this that will find this absolutely charming.
Yeah. And that audience is not us.
Yeah, not me.
It's not the main loop, sorry. Which I know that's going to put a pretty big dent in sales of this game, that they did not get the noob shoes.
Curse you, man.
Yeah. They're going to sue us for libel. You ruined. Sales are down. Yeah. Let's talk about Blizzard, because we never talk about Blizzard. So
is that an up-and-coming indie studio?
They're an indie studio, yeah. That is actually my favorite thing when Kriparian is streaming like Hearthstone and there's any kind of glitch in the game. He's like, come on, guys. I mean, they're a small indie studio. They can't afford to patch this stuff quickly. Yeah. So BlizzCon's coming up, which is their big annual convention, if you couldn't tell by the word con in there. And
Okay, let me stop you there. Get out my soapbox. Everything that has a gathering of 3 people is now called a con. So I think it's actually fair to assume you have no idea what a con could be. It's like, got some friends together this weekend for a friend con. Like, you're just inviting some dudes over to your house.
So going to tell my friend Brian, who is the pastor of our church, that we should rename our church to Trinity Church Con.
Come over for our weekly church con.
Yeah,
it's like,
church con.
No, it's actually just what everyone and their mother does now.
Yeah, we're having podcast con right now. There's 2 people here. PodCon.
No, Wizard of the Coast makes some pretty good games. Like, now every year they're at HasCon.
HasCon?
Yeah, Hasbro has a convention called HasCon. Not even joking.
I don't want to meet the people that like are really into Mr. Potato Head and like go to HasCon.
Apparently, like, there's like Transformers there.
Yeah.
There's some D&D announcements, and of course, like,
hang on. I'm not ready to move off of the potential Potato Head people, because I feel like there's got to be.
I'm pretty sure they were there.
This market of people, just like Mickey Mouse watch people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like pushing 50. Single, really love Disney. Like, I married Disney instead of marrying a human. I feel like there's maybe a market out there of similar Potato Head people. I don't know what they'd be called. Tater tots?
TaterCon.
TaterCon.
It's probably in Idaho.
Oh, man. We'll be at TaterCon this year. Booth 319. Back to BlizzCon.
But like, actually, everyone has a con now.
Yes, it's kind of like everyone has a podcast. I hate to say it, but it's just
true,
like, I don't care. 10 years ago, it was I didn't care about your blog. Now I don't care about your podcast. In 5 years, I'm going to not care about your con. Not going to Startup Con or ConCon. Oh, ConCon. That's actually pretty good.
You know what their slogan could be? Can you do the ConCon?
Can you do the ConCon? Or, and this has been our most productive episode of all time. Thanks for sticking it out with us, listeners. There could be a productivity agile workflow Kanban con. Yeah,
I'm sure that already happened. Okay, I'm sure I could Google this right now.
Okay, let's reel it back in. So
anyway, BlizzCon.
What's cool is that the band Muse is closing out BlizzCon this year, and they are. I can't tell if you were trolling me when you have no idea who Muse is, or if you just legitimately don't. But I
don't know who
they're
Muse
pretty big.
is.
They're pretty big. So that's cool. So I've got the virtual ticket. We're gonna be nerding out watching that.
Should we podcast it? PodCon it?
The BlizzCon PodCon Live 2017.
2017. Noob Shoes.
Let's not. By the makers of Noob Shoes. Stu, talk to me about Psychonauts 2, because you seemed excited about this.
Yeah, so Psychonauts 1? Psychonauts?
Psychonauts 1. Psychonauts. That is the official title.
Yeah, it's like how the first, your first album as an artist is your name. It's fine.
It's great.
Psychonauts is a awesome game. I've only played through like the first world. It was basically like just another like crazy Tim Schafer, like, I'm going to have this idea and then people are going to do it and it's going to be great. And then it was great because it's Tim Schafer. It's a 3D platformer, the original, where you're like a psychonaut who's like a person who can control things with their mind, and goes to summer camp.
So they're not like astronauts.
Sure, but inside their minds. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I was believing you, actually.
No, but like you're just like, and then you play worlds inside of the camp counselors' heads.
Okay.
And it's just like really creepy. It's like Choochel, but if you didn't want to have nightmares at the end. It was just really fun. And they were...
And this is a Double Fine game, correct?
Double Fine game. Crowdfunded on Fig for like $3.8 million. And then they got other outside backing. And I saw... So they just released their first, basically, demo of like just a walkthrough of like what the world's going to look like. And it looks gorgeous. It's awesome because... So like... Broken Age, which I've played through, the first chapter was awesome. Part 2 was bizarre, to say the least. But, like, Part 1 was great. It was like, oh, you took, like, this really cool adventure game concept and evolved it. And it feels kind of like what they're doing with Psychonauts 2, where it's, like, 3D platforming based on this crazy idea, but also evolved, which is everything I was looking for in all of the 3D platformers that were like, nope, we're just going to give you 3D platformers again. And I'm like, but
I want more.
But I want 2017 3D platformer, not 1997 3D platformer with 2017 graphics.
Right, yeah. It's the same as that thing you used to have is not a feature. That's a, yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I could be totally wrong. I'm just basing this off of like the 10 minutes of footage I watched on YouTube. But it looks really clean. It looks really exciting. I felt like the original Psychonauts was great. I know it had a cult following. I have a lot of faith in the stuff that they do at Double Fine. Even if it's not going to be perfect, at least it's going to be interesting. As opposed to... some other game studios which will be like, yeah, we're going to make this really polished game that gives me something I already had. So I'm pretty pumped.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, I need to play the first one, if it ever comes out on Switch and has a physical edition. Then I'll definitely get down on that. Yeah, and Double Fine just seems like a really cool studio. They just... whether or not the game you play from them is your particular cup of tea, it's always obvious that like a lot of work and care went into making it, and that's just that always makes a game way more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember reading an article about them where it's like they always want to be like super awesome, but they're also really weird. And they were like comparing them to the Ramones, because they're like, yeah, this is like great band, but also not like super pop star because they like keep wanting to be weird.
Right.
But they keep wanting to also be pop stars. It like accurately describes Double Fine, who like continually wants to make these awesome hits, but wants to do it by continuing to be weird.
Yeah.
I'm like totally fine with that because I'm really glad they exist. I think it's great that they're continuing to put out really interesting games.
That's sweet. So not a game maker per se, but still pertains to a rapidly growing number of gamers, Discord, who makes what was originally just like a TeamSpeak type, get in, have voice chat for your EverQuest or World of Warcraft raids. And they have been slowly but surely really growing the kind of the spaces they operate in. So it's super easy to create a Discord server, which can be basically like a Slack team.
But it also can be like a forum too, kind of.
Right.
It can be less
Absolutely.
like real time and more just sort of ad hoc.
Yeah, but with voice chat built into it, really good voice chat, which, by the way, which worked extremely well. But they're also now adding video chat and screen sharing, and are really trying to make a push towards like professional organizations. And it's really cool because I a lot of the streamers that I follow and things like that on Twitch, it's like, oh, if you subscribe, you get to be in the Discord and then there's more content, and you don't have to deal with Twitch chat. You can have like more refined chat and things like that. But this could be huge for somebody like the Yogcast or something like that, where it's like we have a whole network of streamers and podcasts and shows all related to that. So I just think it's really cool to see somebody kind of coming after Skype in particular, because that's still what most like.
No. Skype is the best.
Skype's so good. That's still what tons of podcasters use is Skype, and that's probably the thing podcasters hate the most about podcasting is using Skype. And when your audio craps out, or all of a sudden you get robo voice or no voice, and
yeah, we were literally talking about Day 9 and Mostly Walking. The first episode of Mostly Walking I watched, they spent half an hour trying to debug Skype.
Right.
Not even joking.
Yeah, it's terrible. So to see Discord kind of growing, and it's just cool to see something that started in the gaming community now is sort of growing up and actually has like more real world application. And that's really cool. Blizzard is actually really doing the same thing with their, what is now again the BattleNet. It's like Blizzard Entertainment presents the BattleNet Blizzard client, aka BattleNet, doing business as Blizzard.
But hashtag will probably be Steam eventually, maybe? Question mark?
I don't know. Yeah, but they're bringing. Well, so they've already brought voice chat, which is excellent. I mean, we use it every time we play Heroes of the Storm, and it's flawless. No issues, great sound quality, really easy to add people. They're adding new social features like groups, kind of clan type stuff where you can have your own group, whether it's for a podcast or a show or your guild and things like that, right there with built-in voice. So it's,
and they're coming out with an app too.
Yeah, and they're going to have a mobile app for it. So again, to see these things that, yes, are awesome for gamers, but also have more real world, just like you and I live in Slack all day, because it's like we use, I'm in a Slack team for my company, and then we have our own Slack team for the show and just kind of this stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to see some competition in the space. I think
Totally.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just happy I don't have to live in Skype all day.
Right? I had a buddy, and they went to whatever Skype's like enterprise version was, and he said it was just a disaster. As what you can imagine if you had to use Skype for your work all day. So
yeah, for the listeners on the live feed, my face is shocked right now.
Yeah. All right. Tell me about Hob.
Yeah, so Hob is by Runic Games, I think. They made Hearthlight. Oh boy, I'm gonna totally forget this. They made. Yeah, let me just totally flub this.
It's great.
Perfect.
This is great. But you sent this link.
I did.
Which will be in the show notes. Of Day 9. Speaking of Day 9, taking a day off to play through Hob.
Yep. And I also was kind of Torchlight. There we go. Hearthlight,
oh yeah.
What am I saying? So they made Torchlight 1 and 2, which are kind of like smaller versions of World of Warcraft, but like kind of a single adventure, which were like wildly critically acclaimed.
Yeah, Torchlight really... 2, when Diablo 2 sort of crested the hill of old age, that I remember everybody saying, "Oh, play Torchlight 2." Like it is like the best
online co-op.
Yeah,
as well,
action RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so great games. I never really got around to playing either of them. And then they came out with Hob this year, which is still not out for Mac, which makes me sad. Or Switch, which would just be the best.
Nintendo Switch physical edition?
But it's another 3D platformer. It's not quite a platformer. It's more like a sort of 3D...
adventure game.
Asymmetric view adventure game type deal. Kind of along the lines of like a Rhyme or
okay.
I don't want to say The Witness, but it's not really about fighting. There's like a little bit of fighting in it, but it's mostly about like exploring the world and puzzle solving.
Yeah.
And it just looked gorgeous, and I was like trying to find some reviews, and then I saw that Day 9 was playing through it, and I watched the first couple of hours of his playthrough, and it just looks absolutely incredible. The art style is amazing. The storytelling looks great. The puzzles look really fun.
Yeah, this art style is really cool because it reminds me almost of like... There's something about the way everything is really polished, like all the graphics. And by polished, I mean like literally like smooth and sort of matte looking.
Yep.
It reminds me of graphics from like the QuickTime era of like Myst and things like that, where like all the computer graphics had this very matte, because of all the packed polygons and the way lighting and color, it almost looks like that same, like somebody looked at that and was like, okay, but what if we just rendered the same thing like almost no modifications, just render that today. I really like how this looks.
Yeah, the playthrough looks gorgeous. It seemed like there was a little bit of issue. They had a few issues with clipping and just general sort of stuttering on the rendering, but overall it looks incredible. I'm really excited about it. I don't know what it is. I have a huge affinity for 3D platformer adventure type games.
Yeah. So far you have not had good luck.
I do know what it is. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And the only ones that I've really played through, actually, you know what it is? It was when, how many times can I say you know what it is? I remember first playing Super Mario 3D World as like the first big like platforming 3D adventure game on the Wii U, and I just thought it was like the most amazing game ever. And if they re-released it for Switch, I would probably actually buy it just to play through it again because it was that good. And I was like, this is amazing. This is like the best game form on Earth. There must be a million games for it. And then there weren't.
No,
at all.
The genre peaked
because it just like fell apart. Because I feel like it was one of those things where it was like all puzzle based, right? And those were like great, like Banjo-Kazooie, stuff like that. And then for some reason this year there was just a huge wave of everyone's like, yeah, let's get back on the 3D platformer craze with Yooka-Laylee and like Star Fox, or not Star Fox, Lucky's Tale. There we go.
Lucky's Tale, and then the one we were just talking about, Hat in Time.
But literally every single one of the reviews, and I actually ended up purchasing or backing Yooka-Laylee. It's like, well, they're just throwbacks, and you're just playing through the old mechanics, and oh man, they're just so disappointing because I felt like Super Mario 3D World like showed me the possible.
Right.
I was like, this is incredible. Like there's so much cool stuff here. Nintendo isn't really focused on story. They're just focused on like these really awesome puzzles. There's like so much space here to innovate. And then everyone's like, no, like let's just copy 1997. That'll be great.
Let's just make a rare 3D platformer. You know, let's make Banjo-Kazooie, Tooie, Donkey Kong 64. Yeah. And that is a bummer because there's so much space to think about, like what is a 3D platformer at its core? Well, it's moving through a fully three-dimensional world. It involves jumping and puzzle solving. But it's like that's it. Like that at its core is all it is. So there's so much you can build on with that. And instead everybody said, "Oh, 3D platformers are rare games for the Nintendo 64. Like 3D platformers are Banjo-Kazooie." So that's what you have to do when you're thinking about a 3D adventure game in the modern age. And
or they're just like Far Cry or not Far Cry. Man, I am just not on my A game tonight. Or they're just like a AAA game that has some like quote unquote platforming elements. Sorry, Nathan Drake is what I'm thinking of.
Oh, Uncharted.
Uncharted, yeah. Where it's like, oh, this is 3D, but it has platforming elements.
Sometimes you have to jump from things,
which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with using that, but I feel like there's much more space inside of like 3D platforming where Hobb feels more like someone looked at Bastion and was like, oh, this is great, what if we added another dimension to it,
right? And
they made it, and it just looks spectacular.
Or if you had something with the, because there's room to have something with the, again, moving through a three-dimensional space and having to do jumping and fun physical things, but where you can have like some of the mystery and visual surprise of like a Fez, combined with the exploration and sort of the wonderment of like a Jonathan Blow game, where you just keep, you can have these moments of like, oh wow, like what is over there, or what's going to happen when I do this, or this thing just completely surprised me how it happened, or even something like Limbo, where you can have this dark world, but then still these things that will surprise you and sort of delight you. It's just weird because it just seems like we have the technology, like we can do this. We have the technology in 2017 to make really good 3D adventure games. Yeah. And there's Zelda, and then there's open world games.
Yeah, you mentioned Zelda. I was actually just about to bring that up. Like, it felt like how I felt when I played Breath of the Wild, where I was like, oh, so this is like an RPG that I like. Because it's like incredible,
right?
Because I struggle with RPGs. I don't think they're a bad genre of game by any means. They're just not my cup of tea, because it felt like, oh, this is just a series of puzzles that I don't understand and I'm very bad at, and I fail. And Zelda's like, well, yeah, but what if instead of that we like made it an open world, and then you can just like go around solving stuff wherever you go, and there's always something to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I just assumed that like everyone could do that with every genre ever.
There's a sense of like, oh, this must be what like
this is
all 3D adventure RPGs are like. Like I'm going to play them all.
Now, right? Oh, actually, no, this is hard. But that's kind of like what they did with Hob, where like most platformers, the original platformers were like very limited scope puzzles because that was the rendering and processing power of computers at the time, right? Like that was the limitation. To reproduce that limitation now seems absurd.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about Hob because it feels like they took the soul of the genre and were like, okay, this is what you're doing. You're like unlocking puzzles, collecting things, powering up in a limited 3D world.
Yeah.
Without the whole like, and we're going to give you like a chain of puzzles to solve in a very obvious way. And you're going to be like collecting flowers to collect flowers.
Well, I mean, that's even one of the, to me, what I feel like as a game designer would be one of the like greatest things about a 3D platformer is that baked into the genre is this understanding of there are places you can go and places you cannot go. Like there are places where you will fall to your death or you can be on the platform. And so you have this great limit where you can actually design levels instead of we want a 600 kilometers by 600 kilometers square and you need to fill it with interesting things for players to do. Go like write a bajillion quests and tons of dialogue and hide books and all that's great. Like I love Skyrim, I love those kinds of games, but there's something about having a limited format. Like no, this is where you go. If you go other places, you will die and you'll have to start over. And there's this great design space that you can actually have when you have those limitations of okay, I'm going to actually create an interesting level and interesting things that the players will do along this path.
Yeah, it's so funny because. One of my favorite quotes is like rules breed creativity. And I like really strongly believe that like having restrictions brings about really awesome stuff. Just like blindly copying a genre isn't a restriction. Like that's not what we're talking about. Whenever people are like, oh, restrictions are bad, they like point to games that just like, or any forms of media that are just like, well, this is a restriction and it just like ended up copying the thing.
Right.
It's like, well, no, they didn't use a restriction, they just like copied an idea and like made it a little different. Yeah. Using a restriction is like, okay, we're gonna build inside a genre, not rebuild a specific game.
Right.
And that's why I think Hob is so exciting. It has the same feel as like a Journey or a Transistor or like stuff like that, where it's very open and different and interesting, but still sort of follows a lot of the tropes of being a 3D platformer.
Yeah. It's awesome. So talking about puzzles, the Talos principle.
Yeah.
Out of left field is on iOS, or is coming to iOS, I should say.
I think it's on.
I don't know. The thing I sent you said it's coming to iOS. And I believe Devolver Digital is doing the port, which is really like good for those guys because the Talos principle was a huge success. I mean, not quite to like Portal levels, but still, I mean, this is a game that a lot of people have been talking about. Really acclaimed puzzle game. Looks like it has some of the similar, like, it reminds me of, like, if, this is going to sound really dumb and pretentious, but, like, if Jonathan Blow had made Portal is kind of what this looks like. Much more, less humorous and things like that, but very, like, I don't know who I am, I don't know why I'm doing these puzzles, but I'm doing them, and there's just, the game kind of seems to unpack itself from there. So it looks really cool. It seems like they've done a good job porting it to iOS, but we were so busy talking about this gold rush of indie games coming to the Nintendo Switch, and all of a sudden iOS is just like, hey, we've got The Witness, we've got the Talos Principle, like we've got Double Fine Games, we've got Devolver Digital, like we've got all the things you love.
Park, yeah.
Thimbleweed Park, yeah. It's just nuts what's going on iPads and iPhones right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got my gaming consoles in like a square foot right next to me, and I'm like, that's pretty much all I need.
Yep. Yeah. Give me a big old iPhone with a fast processor and a Nintendo Switch.
Let's go to town.
With whatever a Nintendo Switch has. So, yeah, Talos Principle coming soon. It's very cool. Now we have to figure out, just like we have Nindies on Nintendo, we need to figure out what to call iOS indies.
Indies?
We thought about undies.
Indies?
Indies. Indo-S. I don't know. It's hard. So... Yeah, I think we should talk about Nintendo Switch now.
Is that a thing? Is that like a Pop Tart? Right before we jump into that, I played. I think it was like through 10 levels of Portal with developer commentary this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I've never played with the developer commentary. That seems like it'd be super fun.
So it's really cool. So they don't force you to listen to it. It's not like just playing in the background. There's just different spots on the map where you basically can click to to start something up. Oh man, it just like felt like visiting a long lost friend. It was just so well designed, and then they were like telling you about like all of the things they did to make it well designed. You're like, oh, that's so good. It just like, what's so interesting is what Portal really started was this trend of games that have puzzles that don't feel like puzzles.
Right.
And I don't know a great way to articulate that. You know, a lot of Portal isn't super open-ended. Like, there's a pretty clear way to solve it, especially in the early levels where it's like, well, we're trying to teach you these concepts, you bonehead.
Yes, this is what you do.
You need to do this, and we're making it so you really can only do this the one way. But it didn't feel like that, and I think that's what kind of my disappointment with stuff like Ukulele was where it's like, oh, this doesn't really feel like I'm learning here. It just feels like I'm figuring out the spot where the thing is and then moving to that spot and then doing the thing. Yeah. Whereas Portal felt like I was like really learning and understanding the system. And coming back to it, it was just like, it felt that way all over again. And it was just incredible. Just coming back to it, having enough time to kind of like forget about the systems, but still like know it. And then just playing back through it was just like, you know, it still is really one of my top games, and it felt nice. It felt like a good place to be.
So Portal is one of those things that I tend to do this thing where I never get into stuff when people are into it, and then I get into it like 5 years later, and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have like known about this when my friends were playing it. Would have been fun. But Portal is one of those things I remember getting on Xbox 360, kind of just on a whim. It was on sale. It was like $10 or something like that. And I was like, I'll pick it up. I've heard of this, and that was what I did that night. Like, was played Portal. I just played all the way through it. I couldn't stop. I don't know what time I finally finished it, but I couldn't stop playing it. And yeah, there's so much that is just so like perfectly done in that game. And Portal 2 is like also just unbelievably good. But I remember playing through Portal and feeling that same thing that you were just describing. Like, these are puzzles, but they're not what I would think of as puzzles, but they have all the elements. They have pieces that have to fit together in certain ways in order to unlock objectives. But the pieces that they give you are mechanics and systems. Like, they introduce you to the way momentum works as you fall through, the way momentum and gravity play off of each other as you go through portals, and the way you can open portals on these materials and not these other materials and things like that. So they give you all these pieces, and then you have to figure out now, how do I put these things that they've given me together to get through this level. And it was just such a fun experience. And then I remember in the later levels, when you sort of start to get sort of behind the scenes, like you're going through like staircases and stuff like that, I remember being legitimately freaked out because I was like, I don't know where this game is going to go. Like, I'm starting to actually get kind of creeped out. So it was such a just great experience, and you're making me really want to fire it up again and go back through it, and I really want it to come out on Switch with a physical edition.
Oh man, I would be so into that. You have no idea. Yeah, I mean, I even played the co-op mode in Portal 2, and that was just like some of the best times ever. It's just like the other thing, because I remember when Portal was coming out, it was all like, games are cinema and like narrative in games, and it's all about like decision trees and like you can chart your own path. Right. And Portal's like, nah, we're just going to give you a story, and it's going to be a really good story, and you're going to feel like part of that story by playing this, but it's not going to change when you play it again, right? Right. And that was fine. Yeah. It was good. It was really well done. It made me feel like it added to my play experience. Yeah. It reminded me of like Advance Wars, where like you were playing through it and moving forward, and all you were doing was like solving a puzzle to get that next dopamine hit of a story, and it was good enough. It was like, it was really well done, and I really appreciated that, because I felt like before that the conversation was always like, well, you know, narrative in games has to be like do what games do best, which is like branching and about individuality. And I was like, I don't.
Yeah,
want
when we
that.
have, again, with the rise of like open world games and games with all these multiple endings, which I mean, games with multiple endings have been around for a long time, but that became so in vogue. But there's part of me that's like, I wouldn't, like if I watched a movie, like, well, actually I was going to say Blade Runner. That's a terrible example because there's like 18 versions of Blade Runner. But say I watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
Yeah.
And I like the music, I like the acting, I like the story for the most part, I like the cinematography, like I like it. And oh, there's a crazy twist at the end. I didn't see that coming. And then it's done, and I hit stop and I turn off my TV and I go, that was enjoyable. Now, if you told me, okay, but the next time you watch it, like the main character is going to die halfway through, and then this other stuff happens, and then the time you watch it after that, there's all this other stuff, and actually you could watch it like 65 times and still not have seen every possible ending. Then there's kind of a part of me that's like, well, that sucks because I liked it, but not enough to do that. But also, I don't like the feeling that I somehow missed out on this experience just because I don't want to replay this movie a million times. And gaming, like the Telltale games, I honestly do not see the appeal of any of these Telltale adaptations of Batman and The Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands, because that seems like it's all it is you just keep playing through until you've done every dialogue tree and every option to see all the different endings, and that just doesn't feel much like a game to me. And you're right, Portal was amazing because they were like, here's our game, just play it. Like, it's just a game you play. And especially because what was that, 2007, 2008, 2007? Yep. And that was definitely at a time where games were starting to get a little big for their britches, and like, we've got to have all these crazy things to find, and it's got to be huge and expansive and replayable. And they were just like, here, this is a game, you play it, you know, which Valve does super well, right? They're just
it's the Ron Swanson of games. Like, this is a game.
This is a video game.
I believe it is good.
Yeah. You'll play through it. Yeah. It has a beginning and a middle and an end. And I hope you enjoy all three of them. Good day. Yeah.
Yeah, to like kind of move us back towards like Switch, which we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of Breath of the Wild, and I love them both for that same reason. So like, the reason I hate most modern RPGs is what you talked about, where it's like a bunch of branching stories and you have to complete them, and they're kind of in some order.
Right.
And I loved Portal because it's just like, nope, you're going to solve a bunch of puzzles and they're really well done.
Yeah.
And you're going to love every minute of it. And then you're going to get a great story.
Yep.
And you're going to feel like part of that story.
Yep.
Even though you're not having any impact.
Yeah.
And Breath of the Wild is the exact opposite, where it's like, so there's this thing that's going on and you can learn about the story, but you're not playing through the story. You're just like playing through this, and you can do whatever you want. And eventually you're going to end this story.
Yeah.
But there's no branching. You can learn about all, I think it's like 18 parts of the story, right?
Yeah.
And you can go do what you want. And we should probably talk about like that awesome design doc that they came out with. But it's never like, oh, and if you press A at this moment, you're going to branch into a different part of the story.
Right.
Because I would always get hit with analysis paralysis. I'd be like, I don't know what happened, but what do
I have a hard enough playing games that I really enjoy, like the Fallout series.
Yeah.
Because I always I start a quest and then I end up like Googling like the possible outcomes to kind of figure out which way I want to go beforehand. Because the last thing I want to have happen is like, oh, I did the wrong step and now this character died. Or now I'm like the bad guy, because I don't want to be the bad guy in games. And so, yeah, that can be really hard. And the thing that both games like Portal and Breath of the Wild do so well, though, is that they actually leave room for your imagination to fill blanks in. They actually leave so much in the realm of the imagination, whereas so many open world games are like, we're going to have a dialogue and a story for every possible thing you could imagine. Like, you see a book on the ground, there's a side quest about that book. And it's almost like, stop explaining it, like stop giving everything a backstory, because there's no room for my imagination to then inhabit this world, populate it with my own sort of thoughts and my own things that I bring into it. And Portal was the same way, because there's so much that you don't know about what's going on in Portal, and even Portal 2, which started to hint like, oh, we're gonna show you everything about Aperture Science, and then really it's not. It's a bunch of pre-recorded messages and empty offices, and you're still like, I don't know what went on here, and that's great because then your imagination floods in and populates that world with stuff. And Breath of the Wild, the same way, just because of the scope, is just like, I don't know what's over beyond that mountain.
But let's see.
I bet it's cool. And if I think about it, I'll imagine some cool stuff like purple infected dragons, except that was real. But like, there's room for because you don't feel like you have to do everything, there's still room for like some wonder in it of like, I don't know what's up in those snowy mountains. I'm not going to go up there though. So
yeah, and what they both do so well is like, if you have two items in the game, those two items will do something together that is logical.
Yeah.
Regardless that like, and obviously the scope of that in Breath of the Wild is like immeasurably higher.
Yeah.
But it's always logical. And that is so wonderful because it's never like, it's like, oh, let me try to do these two things. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, like the game basically sort of is like, you shouldn't. You just step back. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whereas in Zelda, you're like, oh, so I have to burn this thing. What if I like put my arrow in the fire and then shoot it? And it's like, oh, that just it did the thing that.
Yeah.
What is this witchcraft? Or like in Portal when you're like, okay, so I'm at this high place and I need to get across it. What if I like jump into the portal and then come shooting out the other end? And you're like, wow, that thing, like,
yeah,
the logical thing that you've been setting up for this entire game, like, pays off. And that's what games are supposed to do. And that's like a lot of what that Zelda design doc is like kind of talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move into that. So this design document for Breath of the Wild was translated into English from Japanese
via Twitter feed.
And it is basically a 60-year college course, like an unending college course on how to design video games. And it is amazing. So you hit the high points for us, Stu.
Yeah. So he just kind of walks through like all of these different points. And I think the one that I wanted to start on was at one point they put every tower. So in Zelda, there's like 18 different territories or something. There might not be that many, but like 10.
But there's
a tower. There's a beacon in each one of them that
if you get to the top of the tower,
the area,
then it fills in the map for you, and then you can fast travel between the different regions. So.
And at the start, they had them clustered in a way to make them like pretty accessible from one another, or at least they were like all in the middle, so you would always know where they were at. And what they actually found was that discouraged player exploration, because people would basically be like, oh, I already know where that is, so I don't have to go find it.
Right.
And that would make them not go through a territory. Yeah. They would just like follow the river because the river was like moving towards the castle or whatever.
There's also this thing of like safety. Like when there's something like that's in, I think about Minecraft is a great example of like, you can go exploring so far, but like you always kind of start out by like digging a little cave and then you put some things in there and like you put some torches around. And that can actually start to discourage exploration because you're like, but my little safe, my little safe here. Place. Yeah, this is my home. I don't want to leave my home. And I imagine having those towers all clumped together would kind of give that same feeling of like, this is the safe, predictable area. So just stay around here.
And so what they did is they changed the size of the towers. They changed the locations relative to the different areas. They also did things like they made sure the mountains were different shapes and sizes so that behind every single area that you could be blocked off by in the world, I don't know a better way to describe this because it's so all-encompassing, there is always something behind it.
Yes.
And they shaped it in such a way that from any point you could always like spot something that you could barely kind of just not see.
Yes.
So like there would be like a shrine or a tower that was always peeking behind a mountain or behind a hill.
The idea was that basically from standing anywhere in the game world, you can look out, you can look any direction, and you will see, they refer to triangles. Like you will see some sort of triangle, and you can, from wherever you are, you can just barely see around one or more of these to see that there's something on the other side that could be worth exploring and checking out. So you can literally just like, you could just close your eyes, spin your joystick, make Link spin around a bunch, and then when you stop, whatever direction he's facing, there's something in the distance that you can just barely make out that makes you go, oh, there's a thing over there, I need to go see what it is.
Yeah, which is like, I'm just like speechless. It's like so brilliant. It puts so much, the amount of faith you have to have in a video game player to like make that decision is incredible, mostly because other games don't do it.
Yeah.
Like other games are like, okay, these guys are idiots. We need to make sure like there's a dotted path.
Right.
And that they know where the dotted path is. Because if they don't, they'll probably get lost.
And then just, if they want more, just put some of that lore in there. Just make sure there's some lore. They like the lore, the kids.
And Zelda's like, well, we're just gonna like sprinkle the world with awesome stuff. Mm-hmm. Design it in such a way so that it feels like there's awesomeness everywhere. And let people figure it out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It was so obvious in hindsight, but like,
yeah. I mean, it makes me think of so many things that Nintendo has done over the years where, and this is going to be a really weird example, but I think of Wii Music, which if you've seen the Wii Music stuff from like E3 when they announced it, I mean, it makes you just want to be dead watching them play their Wii instruments and Wii drums and stuff like that. And they couldn't get people to buy in. They could not get buy-in from demonstrating it. But at the same time, I bet it was really fun to play.
Yeah.
Like, I bet they were at Nintendo playing it and just having a blast. And that's what Nintendo still gets right about most of what they do, is the focus is this fun to do? And not even, do we have market research showing that this is what the majority of our ideal gaming market population finds fun? Or when we're sitting in an office, are we going, man, this is fun. Like, this is an enjoyable experience. And how do we do that and provide that to gamers? And it's, I hate to be the fanboy, but even Apple has historically tried to do that as well, of design products in such a way that the people who do use them enjoy them and like have high customer satisfaction numbers, rather than how do we design this so that the most number of people will buy it. Instead, it's how do we design this so that the people who do buy it have a really good experience. And if people don't buy it, they don't buy it. But the people who do are going to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what that design doc kind of showed is it's not a story with a game attached, and it's not a playable world. Like, they made a game.
Yeah.
And making a story with a game attached is hard enough. Like, even just getting that far is like crazy. Yeah. Making a puzzle on a computer is really hard. But to like put the level of effort that they consistently do in something. Yeah. And then to really see it pay off with Breath of the Wild. It was just like, it's so inspiring to see, just to be like, oh, so that thing that like you felt was really magical was actually something that someone spent a lot of time thinking about, right? But not in that really creepy way where it's like, well, we tested this and we found that it triggered like neuron X of your brain, right? It's more just like, well, we tested this and we learned some things, and then we changed it, and we like kind of came up with a system that we felt like we could apply everywhere, and then we applied it everywhere and just kind of saw what happened. Yeah. And they did that, and they executed it, and it was spectacular. Yeah, there's this thing that happens in music production which is just one of the myriad areas where I have imposter syndrome. But there's this thing where you'll hear some song that you really love, and there's something sticks out, and you might hear something like, oh man, at this one part of the song they added this reverb to the vocal, or there's this string part that comes in, or this little flourish on guitar, and it's easy to go, man, whoever did that must just be this just genius. And the stuff just falls out of their head, and they were just like, oh, if we do this flourish on this guitar, it'll be amazing. So on the one hand, it's easy to feel inadequate. Like, I would never just naturally come up with that idea. And then you can also think that it's just somebody who just has this just like, oh, I just do this all the time. I've just got this bank of, oh yeah, guitar flourish number 37B, pop that in. But it's this mix of the two. It's having spent so much time thinking about it and obsessing over it that you can kind of go, man, I just hit my microphone. That's Bush League. That's right there. I'm not a musician. Not a real musician. You're not a real podcaster,
I'm not
Sean.
a real pod music man. This isn't real PodCon. But what happens is when you obsess over the stuff and you think about it, then suddenly you can be, whether it's designing a game or producing a song, and you go, man, I'm just feeling like there just needs to be something here. And then you kind of start noodling with different ideas, and that's when it starts to kind of go, oh wait, because of what I've done in the past and this kind of stuff that I think about, I can figure out something that's going to actually really enhance this in a way that's both really natural and organic, but also really like deliberate and intentional. And it's that balance between things that are organic and deliberate, that like you can err on both sides of like having it be super rigid and formulaic or super terrible because I'm just doing whatever I feel, man. It's like, yeah, that's why this sucks. Like,
This is actually pure gibberish.
but there is this blending of that, especially in Breath of the Wild. The thing that stuck out to me the most was their task system, which was rendered in game. So if I'm a developer on Breath of the Wild, I would be playing the game and walking through the world, and I would come upon like a tree, and there would be this big like dialogue bubble and red arrow from a designer like, please add this thing here, or we need something like this. So as I'm walking through the world exploring, I'm seeing people's ideas of, we need, some bandits here, or monsters here, or a campfire here, or a hidden cave here. And like that idea of you're actually immersed in the world that you're working in is just, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I think it's always fascinating. It feels like once you reach a certain level of like care and focus on a project, the tools you make for that project are like just as incredible as the project that you're creating.
Yeah.
And this is like totally the case of that, where it's like even just like the QA features that they were like talking about, where it's like, actually, no, you just put the bug like in the location.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's incredible because it means that there's less disconnect for the developer or the designer or whoever that's going through it to figure it out.
Yep.
They don't have to worry like, oh, okay, I'm got to read this doc and then I got to like find where that's at in the world, and then I got to kind of line them up on separate screens, and then like got to go do it and figure it out. It's like, nope, you just walk to the spot and it'll be like, and here's your documentation.
Yep.
Done.
Yeah. Yep. It's amazing. So I'll make sure that the link to that is in the show notes, because it's so worth reading and looking through. Like it's just mind blowing. And if you're not a Nintendo fan, this document might just make a Nintendo fan out of you. So
yeah, if you have any interest in game design,
Yeah.
it's just totally worth it.
It really, really blew my mind. So there's plenty more we could talk about Nintendo Switch. It's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, literally every time I hear someone talk about the Nintendo Switch, it's prefaced with, so this is great.
Yeah. I just want to start off by saying how much I love the Nintendo Switch.
You said that last
Yeah.
time. I know, but it's really great. And
Yeah,
if I
well,
could,
and
like,
it hasn't changed. So
play all of the games for it, I would do that. I would
Yeah.
play all of the games for it.
So, yeah, I mean, some of the high points right now, we've got Super Mario Odyssey coming out in like 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
And oh man, I can't wait. Best thing that is going on in my life is that, oh, wait, shouldn't say it like that. The timing worked out well. My wife will be out of town when it arrives. I shouldn't say the best thing in my life is that my wife will be gone. What I meant to say is the timing worked out really well, that I should be getting the game day of, and I will pretty much be doing that all weekend. So that's going to be great. You played a demo of it at Target, at your local Target, and apparently it's pretty good.
Yeah, I was just like walking around. I was like, oh, there happened to be like a Switch here. Let me just pull this up. Oh, there's a Super Mario Odyssey.
Don't mind if I do for the next 4 hours.
And like I was playing through it, and it was like, oh, so you like took all of the learning from like Super Mario 3D World, and then all of the learning from Breath of the Wild, and like made a Mario game.
Yes, that's exactly what happened, actually.
I remember. So like the main mechanic is like you're throwing your hat at the guys, right?
Yes.
That's how you interact with the world.
Yes.
And it took a while to figure out, because like I was trying to like hop on the Goombas, and I was just like getting beat up, because it's really hard to figure out how to hop in a 3D space where they're like all jumping around and it's non-obvious. And I was like, oh, let me just throw stuff at them, and it worked great, and they all died. And then there was a Bullet Bill. Oh my gosh,
Buckaroo Banzai.
And I was like, oh, he's coming at me. Let me just throw my hat at him. And I had like heard that, oh yeah, like you can like grab people that way. And I was just like, I didn't really think about it. It's like, oh yeah, this is obviously the thing the game wants me to do, throw my hat at it. And then I was Bullet Bill. Like, just like, oh my gosh. Like, even if I had learned nothing about Super Mario Odyssey before then, like if I hadn't heard that I could turn into stuff, I would have just instinctively done it anyway. and like doing it, and then all of a sudden I was Bullet Bill, and it was incredible. And I was like, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever.
I just can't wait. I'm just so excited. Like, I just can't wait. It's just
yep.
The quality of games coming out for the Nintendo Switch is just ridiculous. Stardew Valley came out this week. Terrible. It's all I'm doing now is checking on my farm and hitting on all the ladies.
Yeah.
Just did the first flower dance and nobody wanted to dance with me, so that game's done.
Poor Sean.
It's so great. You're still loving Rabbids. Golf Story is next on your list. There's just so
I've
much.
heard great things. Picross came out for it. I have no idea, but apparently people like that.
People like it.
Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, which I've heard is a great co-op game, is out for it.
I don't like games where I play with other people.
That's fair.
With one exception. So, yeah. It's
there's just, an awesome lineup. It's only going to get better. It's so weird that a year ago we were all talking about how Nintendo might be like falling apart and everything is awful.
Yeah.
And this year there's a decent chance that Nintendo released the 3 best games of the year.
Yep.
And the middle one, everyone thought was going to be awful. Mario Rabbids.
Right.
I heard from one person on a podcast I listened to who was like, yeah, this might have replaced XCOM for me. And I was like, what is going on right now?
It's crazy.
And another person was like, oh yeah, I could see like just putting Rabbids in all of the Mario games now because it's that great.
I would like Rabbids in the next Mario Kart, like Rabbit drivers.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm down for that.
I'm onto something.
I can get on that train.
Make it happen, Nintendo. Yeah, it's just a great time to be a Nintendo Switch owner, because if you own a Nintendo Switch, then you own a Nintendo Switch, which is just about the best thing that you can have happen to you. So
yeah, I remember with the Wii U, it's like, oh, there's like all these great games that no one's ever going to play. And you'll play it because I played because I was like, I think that was the first console I could buy on my own. I like bought on my own. I was like, this is great. Also, ew. But this is great. And I remember playing like Super Mario 3D World and Splatoon, and I was like, this is awesome. These games are wonderful. And now I have a Switch, and it's like, these games are awesome, but also the console is great.
Yes, the Switch itself I just want to have around. So, yeah. They're in stock, people. Go out and get yourself a Switch if you don't have one. Seriously. That's going to do it for this week. Email us, mainloopshow@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @themainloop. Subscribe on iTunes. Leave us reviews so more people can find us and so we know that you like what you hear. And check us out, themainloop.com. No, wait, that's not a thing. I don't know why I said that. I just assumed that we had all these other things. I don't think we have that. So, yeah. Thanks for listening.
You can go there and tell us if it's available.
Yeah, and I think the next episode we will do will be the week of Odyssey release. So maybe we'll have to push till after we've played it.
Yeah, we might have to.
Yeah. So that's coming up. So
get excited.
Yeah, check out the show notes. There'll be links to everything we talked about today. And we'll be back in next time. We'll be back in next time. Yeah, see you all in next time. Yeah, these muffins, put them in the oven and bake them for next time. See you, everybody.
See ya.